Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds, hanging out with
Nerdarchy Ted.
And we are delving back into Xanathar's Guide to Everything. This time we're talking about bards.
Jump down in the description below where you can sign up for Nerdarchy, the newsletter, get weekly gaming tips, as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy.
While you're down there, you'll also find a link to Amazon to get your copy of Xanathar's Guide to Everything, and it helps support Nerdarchy.
All right, so today we're getting into Bards, and we got 3 colleges and a little bit of extra stuff to talk about.
We have 3 colleges, like you said. I'm on the wrong page, son of a monkey's uncle. Because Bard starts on page 12 in your Xanathar's Guide to Everything. And so here, it talks a little bit about, defining works, an embarrassment, an instrument, and a Bard's Muse.
So it's really cool, and as always, these things are a random chart that you can roll on if you don't want to come up with something on your own, or as guidelines for what kind of things you should be creating if you want to make something on your own. So the defining works, we have things like, the 3 Flambinis, a ribald song concerning mistaken identities and unfettered desires. It's things that are to define you as a bard, so that you've managed to come up with something that is thrilling, that is telling, and
kind of explains why you're a bard. There's some other ones on here, and these are just suggestions. Like, you can come up with your own, but a Fool in the Abyss. You got Asmodeus's Golden Arse and Waltz of the Myconids. They're like the more interesting ones. Are funny.
I like a subtle parody of an incompetent noble, a hoop, 2 pigeons, and a hellhound. So like they talk about whether you're a bard of song or jokes or what have you. These are things that can guide you, that define you. It's great stuff.
Instruments, they just make up a couple. There's a short list of interesting instruments that you might own. So it's basically just kind of like reflavoring one of the instruments you already have in your possession.
You want a wooden bullywug croak box.
That would be pretty sweet. I mean, maybe not as sweet as an orchestra drum, but it's not bad. So the embarrassment is kind of a funny section. It's kind of like, oh, you did something while performing, and now you're kind of known for that, as well as the other stuff, and you're trying to either overcome it or maybe you just roll with it.
Maybe you just live it. So it's a way to say that everybody starts off from somewhere, and you probably have had a blunder at some point in time, and this is what it was. So
and then there's the idea of amuse, where you basically create most of your works around a specific, I guess, genre, theme, topic, whatever you want to call it.
It basically is like, well, why are you a bard? What is it about life or about being a bard that has inspired you to do so? Is it nature? Is it love? Or is it conflict? And if you really boil it all down, you can, anything that you might consider is probably going to fall into one of these 3 things. And I took some time to be like, can I think of something that can't be explained in one way, shape, or form between these 3? And I couldn't do it.
I took it completely different. I took it as like, these are 3 options that you could focus on as a bard that inspire your bardic works, or you could come up with something completely different or not use it at all.
That's true.
It actually says that, I think, like, this is a part where some bards don't have a muse, where others do, or it could be very, very specific, where it could literally be someone you were in love with. That is your muse. Or it could be more generic, or it could be the stars or whatever, or nothing. You're a bard and you make up songs.
Absolutely. So then we get into the actual colleges. We start off with Glamour, and Glamour gives you the Mantle of Inspiration, Enthralling Performance, the Mantle of Majesty, and Unbreakable Majesty.
The thing I really found interesting about this particular bard is it gives you new ways to use Bardic Inspiration. Literally, it takes your Bardic Inspiration die and sets it over here, and we don't even touch it for what you're going to use it for. Mantle of Inspiration is literally you're giving out temporary hit points, and you're letting people move without drawing attacks of opportunity as part of a reaction, I believe. So it's just like an interesting thing you can do. It could give you tactical advantage in combat, but it's a completely different way than we've seen Bardic Inspiration used up until this date.
Now, in the Unearthed Arcana, the Mantle of Inspiration used to be 2d6 as a static hit points. Now it's 5 temporary hit points, but they increase with level. So by the time you're 15th level, you're guaranteed 14 hit points, which is 2 more than the maximum you could possibly roll with the Unearthed Arcana version.
And you're also able to affect up to your charisma modifier in individuals. So you're giving out a bunch, and it becomes another way for you to use your bardic inspiration. Then we have enthralling performance, which you also get at 3rd level, and this is more of like an out of combat ability, because you actually have to sit there and talk to someone for a minute.
Now, it actually in the UA, it actually used to be 10 minutes.
Oh,
so they actually made it
shorter.
Much easier. And the greatest thing is, if the target succeeds on its saving throw, it has no hint that you tried to charm it. I'm like, yes, finally they've heard me.
Yeah, well, yeah, we're actually seeing that over and over again. Now, it doesn't say about if you succeed or if they fail their saving throw, but it just says if they succeed. But pretty much most of the effects that were like, oh, they know you were charmed, actually call it out.
Yeah.
So here they not only do they not call out that they know, but it does call out that if they fail, if they pass, they don't know that you tried to get one over on them.
So this gives them you the ability to charm somebody, and they're pretty much yours for an hour. If they get attacked, if they witness you attacking or damaging an allies, it'll end. But for the most part, they're going to be your friend for an hour, and they're gonna share stuff with you. It's great.
So Mantle of Majesty, I found this one to be really strong, and literally for the duration of when it's going on, basically a combat, right, a minute. You just can every round just command as a bonus action.
Now, the wording, in my opinion, in the UA was actually a little bit better. I actually found this one in the actual book. I think they needed another read through, because it says as a bonus action you cast command twice in the actual listing. So I wonder if that was done in error. But other than that, the actual nature of what's here is actually the same in the UA. Just the wording, I think, is wonky.
I just took it for the duration every round while it's going on without expending spell slots. You're just commanding people, and if they happen to be charmed by you already, they automatically fail that command. So it's pretty strong. And once again, this resets after a long rest. So this is a daily ability essentially. So I guess that's like one of the mitigating factors. But when you get to use it, it's going to be pretty potent, I think.
Absolutely. So then we move on to 14th level, the Unbreakable Majesty. Your appearance permanently grants an otherworldly aspect that makes you look more lovely and fierce.
So this one makes you undesirable to attack, essentially, when you use it. They have to make a saving throw to attack you, and even if they do attack you, or even if they do pass the saving throw and attack you, they're going to get disadvantage.
But you know what? It's a charisma save.
Well, yeah.
That's going to be awesome. So I read this and I'm like, yeah, I'm really looking forward to playing one of these at one point in time, just because how many people have junky charismas? Yeah, when you get to fighting the dragons and your, illithids and that kind of stuff, yeah, they're not going to have a problem.
But bruisers.
But your bruisers, they're not going to touch you. Yeah, they'll attack you with disadvantage if they manage to succeed, but that's going to be incredibly helpful. And this is completely different than what was in the Unearthed Arcana. In Unearthed Arcana, it actually allowed you to cast Sanctuary. Vastly different.
Okay, so a whole new set of mechanics. Now you get to use this, once per rest, pretty much. So long rest, short rest. So depending on how often you rest, you're going to get to use it. You can get to use it multiple times. It's good. It's a decent ability, and it's also 14th level, so I expect a decent ability.
Absolutely. So then we move on to the College of Swords, and here's the one that you've got your knife thrower, your sword swallower, throwing and juggling. This is the kind of bard that in earlier editions, this is what I liked to play. Just because me and swords.
Makes sense. So you're going to get at 3rd level, you get bonus proficiency, fighting style, blade flourish, 6th level extra attack, and 14th level is master's flourish.
All right. So with the Unearthed Arcana, you didn't get your weapon to be able to be a spell focus before. So if you were going to cast a spell, you still needed your instrument, which could be problematic if you're meant to be using a weapon. It's like, How do I use both?
Yeah, it's literally like having part of Warcaster built right into your class.
Absolutely. When we get into the fighting style, you used to only get the 2 weapon fighting. Now you get dueling as well. So that's incredibly helpful. And when you want to be like the swashbuckler, I use a rapier and voila. This is exactly what that would be for.
Now, the only downside is they don't get shield proficiency, so you can't really capitalize on that duelist style. And I feel like that's what most of us do with dueling. We put a shield in the other hand and hit harder with our primary weapon.
That's true, but yeah,
It's still fitting.
it's still fitting. So the blade flourish, there's no longer a weapon requirement in the Unearthed Arcana. You had a specific weapon choice that you could do, and you didn't have the speed bump. So now you get the extra 10 foot of movement when you do it. The defensive flourish that's part of that actually used to take a bonus action to make happen. So now it doesn't do that. And now it adds damage and AC, so it's significantly better. But you had a trickster flourish and an unnerving flourish that are no longer an option. So you've got slashing and mobile instead. So I actually kind of liked some of the stuff that was in the Unearthed Arcana, but I guess they felt the unnerving flourish was too reminiscent of the Unbreakable Majesty, maybe.
So okay, so I guess we'll delve into what you actually get.
Okay.
And then we'll go back to the things that you're missing, you're pining for. So the defensive flourish is really sweet. When I read that, I was like, man, to attack, to your damage and your armor class, that's pretty sweet. The only limiting factor is your Bardic Inspirations. You only get so many of them, but they do refresh you after a short rest.
So is Uthengar thinking about what would it take for 3 levels of Bard?
No. He's definitely not there yet. Then you get Slashing Flourish. You can expend 1 use of your Bardic Inspiration to cause the weapon to deal extra damage to the target you hit and to any creature of your choice you can see within 5 feet of you. The damage equals the number you roll on your Bardic Inspiration die. So basically, you get an area effect around you. Everything within 5 feet of you is going to take at least some damage.
No, well, not to every creature, just to one other. Okay,
I thought this. So let's see. You can expend 1 use of your Bardic Inspiration to cause the weapon to deal extra damage to the target you hit, and to any other creature of your choice that you can see within 5 feet. Maybe I misread it. So maybe one other creature takes the damage.
Well, I don't know. When you focus on that, it would say to one other creature within 5 feet, but to any other creature, that's
right. But it doesn't say creatures, so I don't know. I'm a little confused on that one. Jeremy Crawford, where are you?
sage advice.
We might have to sage advice that one. If it's to any creature, and it's only the extra die, it's not bonus. Like I'm going to go with it's any creature, and that's how I'm going to run it in my game. I'm not entirely sure of the wording there. It could be like you said. It could just be anyone that you pick. But at best, it's a die 12, so it's not. By the time you get to die 12,
so if you happen to be completely surrounded, that's 7 additional foes
for a little bit of damage.
Yeah,
So
Kobold Slayer.
Yeah, exactly. And at that point, it's like, why are you fighting kobolds? It makes you just a bully.
You're a 3rd level. I mean, you can start doing it then.
Well, no, die 12. I said die 12, and you get the higher dies, is what I meant. And then you have Mobile Flourish. You expend 1 use of your Bardic Inspiration to cause the weapon to deal extra damage to the target you hit. The damage equals the number you roll on the Bardic Inspiration die. You can also push the target up to 5 feet away from you, plus any number of feet equal to the number of the roll on the die. You can then immediately use your reaction to move up to your walking speed to an unoccupied space within 5 feet of the target. So you can get maybe up to an extra 10 feet. Like, this is the least useful of the options, in my opinion. So now let's go into the Unearthed Arcana and what were the other ones and what are the things you're kind of pining for a little bit.
Well, we had Trickster Flourish and Unnerving Flourish. And Unnerving Flourish, it's not the exact same mechanic, but it had similar things to Unbreakable Majesty, issues with attacking and fear and that kind of stuff. And I kind of liked that. So I was like, well, each of these guys do extra damage and then something. Mm-hmm. Now, it's kind of nice to be able to just layer on the damage, but sometimes I like the other effects
Now, sixth level is extra attack, and we all know what that is.
That's exactly the same in the Unearthed Arcana. 14th level, we move on to Master's Flourish, and this is vastly different from what was in the Unearthed Arcana. We actually had Battle Magic, which was very similar to the
College of Valor.
College of Valor, yeah. And here it's whenever you use a Blade Flourish option, you can roll a d6 and use it instead of expending a Bardic Inspiration die. So you could be using those things all the time.
Yeah, 14th link gets really good, especially the first one. Just here's extra damage, and my armor class goes up. Every round, there's nothing to not like about that. Or the, hey, I just damage everything around me, and you take a little extra damage.
Yep. So there's nothing wrong with College of Swords. I would play one in a heartbeat. Next we move on to the College of Whispers.
These guys very much kind of remind me of Wormtongue from Lord of the Rings,
Absolutely.
or literally any evil advisor type character you've ever seen in a Disney movie.
Reading through all of these bards, like it just fills me with, oh, I'd like to play that. Oh, I'd like to play that. Like while I enjoyed reading the Barbarian, I felt more inspired while reading the Bard to make characters.
Well, I feel like, I'm kind of surprised at that because the College of Whispers doesn't seem like your type of character. That is, they very much, this is a villain in my mind.
It's definitely designed with villainy in mind, but there is something that appeals to me. Like you can play this not necessarily as a hero, but more as like a dark hero, where like, all right, the world is grim itself, and I'm going to make it a better, even if I'm not better. So I felt inspired to even go on this one. Probably wouldn't be my first pick. Now the College of Whispers are not necessarily universally, but most bards don't like the College of Whispers because they just give bards a bad name.
They give bards everywhere as a bad rap.
So we get Psychic Blades, Words of Terror, Mantle of Whispers, and Shadow Lore.
So Psychic Blades is essentially a psychic sneak attack version for these guys. Like they blast through their Bardic Inspiration, and it gives them extra psychic damage per attack, and it goes up as they level. Starting early on, they get an extra 2d6 up to 15th level, where it's 8d6. That's a psychic fireball.
Now it actually, like they used to be very heavy on the poison. And they actually had venomous blades, and the poison or the damage that it did, poison, would scale differently than what it has here. So it winds up actually being better, and it does psychic damage, which there might be some things that are resistant, but there's far more things that are resistant to poison damage. So it's actually
immune.
That's true.
So the poison damage, like it's really close between immunities and resistances between fire and poison as being the most.
So to switch it to psychic, which there's not a whole lot of stuff that's resistant to or immune to, it's definitely a step in a right direction.
And not only that too, it does make sense if you're saying these guys are like of the bards, these guys are like the masters of mind magic. So that in that regards, it definitely makes sense.
So then we move on to Words of Terror. You learn to infuse innocent seeming words with an insidious magic that can inspire terror. Talk to somebody for a minute. You can make them afraid of either you or somebody else. And it's just awesome. Like that part to me was like, oh, I could plant the seeds, and depending upon who you pick, you've got them the ability to just set them in motion to do these things that you want, and they have no clue why they did it. And in the Unearthed Arcana, it used to be a 10-minute conversation. It used to be called Venomous Words. Doubling down on that poison theme.
So again, this is a thing you can use. You can use it after finishing a short or long rest, and also after it ends. Again, they don't actually know what happened.
Yes, if the target succeeds on its saving throw, the target has no hint that you tried to frighten it. It's like, yeah, love it. So then we move on to 6th level, the Mantle of Whispers.
So 6th level, you gain the ability to adopt a humanoid's persona when the human dies within 30 feet of you. You don't have to kill them; they just have to die near you, and you basically steal their shadow. and you can hold on to it for a while until you're ready to use it. And basically, then you just you take on their persona for an hour. And not only that, you even know like their surface thoughts, things that they would kind of tell people and talk to people and their mannerisms. So you're really good at imitating.
You used to have a size limitation on this, and you used to lose all the knowledge that you gained. Now there's no mention of that whatsoever. You could literally, oh, I killed that ogre. All right, well, I'm gonna be the ogre. Oh, I killed a goblin. Well, I'm gonna go be the goblin. So your size can literally change when you take on this disguise. So much more powerful. Really cool. Mechanics wind up being the same, other than those small things. Once you capture a shadow with this feature, you can't capture another one with it until you finish a short or a long rest. You get to keep it as long as until you do a long rest, and once you put it on, as Dave says, you get an hour.
Well, and that being said, too, like whether it's you're turning into something tiny or huge, you're not shape changing. You're still you. It's just a disguise. You just take on the appearance. So you could be a frost giant, but if you have an 8 strength, you still have an 8 strength.
Yes.
So
if you're not polymorphed, it's a disguise. You got to make it work.
Yeah, so that part of it is kind of cool and interesting, and it does give you a lot more versatility, at least from what's printed here. So I don't know if they're thinking, oh, humanoid giant, does this work? Well, humanoid is type, so that might not work anyway.
Right. And then we move on to 14th level, the Shadow Lore, and here it's, I believe, word for word exactly the same as what's in the UA.
Okay, and this is the one where basically you make someone think that you know their secret, and they'll do pretty much anything to keep you from that, except for excluding like risking their life.
So 30 feet away, you whisper something, and only the target hears you, and they think that you've whispered their darkest secret. You don't know it. They don't know that you know it. They don't know that you don't know it. They think you know it, and they're scared. They're scared that you'll release it to everybody else, and they'll do whatever they can to make sure you don't spill it.
And yeah, and it lasts a long time too. 8 hours. Like they're your kind of the minion for 8 hours, as long as you don't do anything that's going to threaten their life.
And when the effect ends, the creature has no understanding of why it held you in such fear. If they pass their saving throw, all they hear is like whispered sounds. There's not even words. Utterly amazing. Finally, we get proper charm spells in all of these schools that
They've heard us complain loud enough.
They don't just suck.
So now we have one more thing to do to complete our Xanathar guide to everything on the Bards.
Well, we're going to talk about how we would use these options as villainous NPCs.
All right, Glamour, I thought about this one. This is the lazy layabout that shows up in town and manipulates everyone into getting all their stuff and getting everybody to do stuff for them, and they won't leave, and no one sees the problem. And the adventurers show up in town, and they kind of see this. Maybe they've been here before, maybe they know everyone, and they don't understand what's going on, and they have to get rid of this imposter.
That's not bad. I was looking at it as more along the lines of, these are the guys that are specifically trained by the Fae, so perhaps you have a very Fae-themed campaign, and you've got one of these guys that's out there, weaving all of this around, using illusions and using these effects to thwart the party.
They would make excellent agents for the Seelie and Unseelie courts.
And they might not even be aware that there's this character out there trying to thwart them until it's too late.
So the Blade, I would introduce the Blade as, an entertainer just like he is, and have the encounter evolve around him trying to execute an assassination attempt during his performance against an NPC, and the players are present. Whether it's just an encounter or it springs forwards into a whole adventure because he gets away, or them having to figure out who hired him. But that's how I would use the Blade.
As a twist on that, I would actually want to have the assassination happen, but he's so confident in his skills that he actually makes it look like that it happened as an accident. So he does a performance deception check to, have this horrific thing happen, and so the players have to investigate and see what wind up transpiring, see how things actually go, and potentially he winds up escaping. They find out that, once they find out that it legitimately wasn't an accident, he winds up escaping, and that's where they have to get deeper into the investigation. And then that's where you bring in the who actually hired him, and it could be a lot of fun.
Final one, College of Whispers, literally Worm Tongue. I would literally just have it as the evil advisor. Yeah, it's campy and tropey, but sometimes it's a trope for a reason.
That's true. There's other directions that you could go, but as the age old adage goes, when it ain't broke, why fix it?
I have to concur. So the question is, guys, are you playing these in your game? Would you use them as villains in your games? Are you using the extra bits and bobs from the bard, like the muse and the instrument stuff? Let us know. We got a place for it. That is down in the comments below. While you're at it, like, share, and subscribe.
You can also support us over on Patreon.
So until next time,
Stay nerdy.